My wife and stepdad teamed up to embezzle from my company. I found out and made them pay the price. I'm 39 and the proud owner of a company I built from scratch. Every detail, every inch of its foundation represents years of sacrifice, countless sleepless nights, and every ounce of my energy poured into making it what it is today. It's not just a business. It's a testament to my sheer determination and refusal to give up. My wife Riley and I had been married for 6 years. While our marriage wasn't perfect, we had our share of ups and downs like any couple. I truly believed we had an unspoken understanding, a mutual agreement born from knowing how tough life could be. I thought we had each other's backs. Then there was my stepdad, Bill. He came into my life when he married my mom while I was 16. He was the type who never really put in honest work, but was always ready to reap the benefits of other people's success. I never fully trusted his intentions, but I kept him at arm's length to maintain peace for my mom's sake. She always defended him, insisting he meant well, despite my gut telling me otherwise. Everything changed when I first noticed the irregularities in our financials. They seemed innocent enough, a few numbers that didn't quite add up, transactions that looked slightly off. You know how it goes with accounting. Sometimes things get misclassified or entered wrong. At first, I chalked it up to human error, maybe someone in accounts getting sloppy with the data entry. The breaking point came when I discovered a series of transfers that made no sense. They were small enough to fly under the radar, never large enough to trigger any automatic alerts. But they were consistent, like a slow leak draining my company's resources. What really set off alarm bells was how these transfers were categorized. Someone had gone to great lengths to hide them within legitimate business expenses. I knew I needed professional help, not just any accountant, but someone who specialized in finding what others tried to hide. Through my business network, I found my friend, Mark, a forensic accountant with a reputation for being meticulous and discreet. Mark's investigation was like watching a master detective at work. He started by establishing a baseline of normal financial patterns in my business. Then he began looking for anomalies, not just in the numbers, but in the timing of transactions, the approval patterns, the documentation. He brought in specialized software that could track patterns human eyes might miss. The process was painstaking. Every week, Mark would brief me on his findings. He'd spread documents across my desk, showing me patterns emerging from what looked like chaos. He discovered that whoever was behind this knew our internal systems well. They understood our approval processes, knew exactly how much they could take without raising red flags. What really got to me was learning how long this had been going on. The trail went back almost 2 years. 2 years of systematic theft right under my nose. Mark showed me how they'd started small, testing the waters with tiny amounts. When those went unnoticed, they gradually increased the frequency, never the size. That was their clever trick. The breakthrough came when Mark traced the money's destination. He found a complex web of transfers, but eventually, all roads led to one place, a joint account I'd never known existed. When he showed me the account holders' names, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. There they were in black and white, Riley and Bill. Mark explained how they'd covered their tracks. They'd used a combination of legitimate business payments and falsified expenses. They even created fake vendors and service contracts. The level of planning was staggering. This wasn't opportunistic theft. This was a calculated, long-term scheme. The forensic report was hundreds of pages long. Mark had documented everything, every transfer, every false entry, every manipulated record. He'd built an airtight case showing not just the theft, but the deliberate deception behind it. What hit me hardest was realizing how much trust I'd placed in our internal controls. I'd always prided myself on running a tight ship, but they'd found the gaps in our armor. Mark helped me understand that it wasn't just about the money. It was about the betrayal of trust at every level. By the time the investigation concluded, I had a complete picture of their scheme. The evidence was irrefutable, documented in excruciating detail. Mark had given me everything I needed to take legal action. But more than that, he'd shown me just how vulnerable we'd been, and how much needed to change to prevent this from ever happening again. I felt sick to my stomach, a cold wave of realization washing over me. The two people who should have supported me had been working together behind my back. I couldn't understand their motivation at first. Most people might have crumbled under that kind of betrayal, but after years of building my business and overcoming countless obstacles that would have made others quit, I wasn't about to let emotions paralyze me. I needed to take action. My first call was to my lawyer, the same guy who'd helped me through some legendary boardroom battles. Though shocked, he knew we had to move fast. He confirmed I had solid grounds for embezzlement charges, but warned these cases could drag on for years and complicate the inevitable divorce proceedings. I didn't care. My mind was made up. Before filing anything, my lawyer advised me to protect my assets immediately. We needed an emergency court order to block my wife and stepdad from accessing any company finances. Getting a judge's approval required solid evidence of immediate financial risk. Meanwhile, I locked down everything I could internally, changed passwords, restructured access permissions, and implemented new protocols with my executive team without revealing too much. I even increased monitoring on my personal accounts. Armed with the final forensic report, I knew I couldn't put off confronting Riley any longer. The numbers were crystal clear. Every transaction, every hidden transfer spelled out their deliberate scheme. But what I uncovered next hit me like a freight train. Riley wasn't just working with my stepdad Bill. She was his biological daughter. The truth came out during my deep dive into their connection. Bill had walked out on Riley and her mom a long time ago when they had nothing left for him to take. Just straight up abandoned them when he couldn't squeeze any more money or favors from the situation. And now here they were, father and daughter, teaming up to bleed my company dry. The irony wasn't lost on me. Bill had ditched them when they had nothing, only to reconnect and conspire with his long-lost daughter when she had access to my company's finances. I waited in our living room that evening, the same space that had seen our holidays, arguments, and reconciliations. But tonight felt different. The air was heavy with tension. "I know," I said coldly as she walked in and set down her purse. "Know what?" she asked casually, as if we were discussing dinner plans. "About the money. About you and Bill." The color drained from her face like she'd seen a ghost. The silence was deafening. "How did you find out?" she stammered. "Does it really matter?" I snapped, my composure starting to crack. "How long have you been stealing from me? How long have you looked me in the eye, playing the loving wife, while robbing me blind?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't move me. Not anymore. She collapsed into a chair, hands shaking. "He convinced me you were keeping things from me," she sobbed. "Said you were selfish, that I deserved more for everything I put up with?" "Put up with?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean the nights I stayed up working? The weekends I spent building something for our future? That's what you felt entitled to steal?" When I confronted her about being Bill's daughter, she broke down completely. Through her tears, she explained how Bill had recognized her name and hometown when I first brought her home. He'd instructed her to build my trust so I wouldn't suspect their eventual plan. I told her to pack her things and leave. I couldn't even look at her anymore. She didn't fight it, maybe the first honest thing she'd done in years. The divorce was brutal, just as my lawyer predicted. Her attorney tried painting her as a victim, manipulated by my stepdad's schemes. She even cried in court, claiming she didn't understand what she was doing, that Bill had controlled her actions. But the forensic evidence was irrefutable, and I remained resolute. Without a prenup, she tried claiming part of my company, arguing she'd supported me in building it. My legal team was ready for this, proving her support was just a cover for her true intentions. The court saw through her act. After months of legal battles, I kept control of my company. She got a settlement, but nowhere near what she'd hoped for. My life's work remained mine, but I wasn't finished with Bill. I filed a civil lawsuit for tortious interference, showing how he'd systematically tried to destroy what I'd built. Criminal embezzlement charges followed. He denied everything, and even tried counter-suing for defamation, but his case was thrown out almost immediately. The courtroom became our battlefield. His lawyer argued this was just a family dispute gone wrong, that Bill was only protecting his daughter's interests. But we exposed their greed, manipulation, and sense of entitlement. When the dust settled, the court ruled in my favor. Bill avoided jail through a plea deal but got probation, heavy fines, and had to pay restitution. It wasn't the justice I'd dreamed of, but it was enough to move forward. When I showed my mother evidence of his past, including abandoning Riley and her mother, she finally saw his true colors and left him. Rebuilding wasn't easy, but I made my company stronger than ever. I brought in trusted advisors, implemented strict financial controls, and set clear boundaries in both my professional and personal life. Months later, standing in my office watching the sunset, I realized I'd weathered the storm. I brought on a friend as a partner, someone who genuinely believed in me and the company. Together, we pushed the business to new heights. I even started dating again, meeting someone who understood my story and respected that I needed time to trust. She got why I was so protective of what I'd built. The biggest lesson I learned: trust but verify. People can surprise you in the worst ways. Protect what you build because no one will care for it like you do. Betrayal leaves scars, but it doesn't have to define you. Today, my company and my life are rebuilt on my terms. I've surrounded myself with loyal people and cut ties with those who showed their true colors. My relationship with my mom is different now, quieter, tinged with sadness for what was lost. But I've learned to appreciate those who bring honesty and positivity into my life. Standing here in this new chapter, with the betrayal behind me, I know that my success is truly mine, earned and protected. No one will ever take that away again. I'm stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever comes next.